Okay, can we go back to the question, please, at hand? I'm curious to learn how it works.
Yes.
Let's go into how it works, and then we can dig in a little more. Thank you.
Certainly. So before I show you the device, quick FDA disclaimer: we are approved as a 513G wellness device for sleep and for improving sleep and improving mental wellness. And we are not yet approved for any medical indication. We're going through that process. We've got 2 large clinical trials going on at the moment, one for fibromyalgia, one for neuropathic pain, and many other pain and mental illness trials in our pipeline. So with that disclaimer, this is a device as it currently is. You're getting pulsed light through closed eyes and sound into your ears. So what happens is the person who's using it, literally all they have to do is sit in a reclined position or lie down, put on headphones, and press play. And what the user experiences is a pulse of light through closed eyes and a pulse of sound into their ears, and that gives you four inputs into the brain. And we're cycling through those 4 inputs in a very specific way to get the brain into a very deeply relaxed state. Now, all pain can be divided up in multiple different ways, but the most useful way for this is to think about central mediation, i.e. how the brain is processing a pain signal, and peripheral pain, the signal that's actually coming into the brain. Now, my particular type of spinal cord injury and TBI pain, I didn't actually have a pain signal coming up from my body. I only had essentially a corrupted data stream. So when you get more relaxed, your brain actually goes into an increased speed of neuroplasticity. So your brain is adapting to where it is more efficiently. With me, that wiped out all of my underlying pain in actually precisely 3 months. The other end of the scale would be someone who we've had users with things like complex regional pain syndrome, where you do have a peripheral pain signal. And in those kind of cases, we are helping people round about 10 to 20% reduction in pain. That lasts, and if they stop using a device, within about a month, they go back up to their previous pain levels. So one end of the spectrum, we are potentially just a tool and toolkit, and the other, hopefully, we'll find other people like me that we're a silver bullet for solving their pain issue. So you put it on, you use it for 16 minutes as a standard session, and most people are using it once a day. By the time they've got things under control, they're using it once a day, and they're using that at night to help them go to sleep quicker. Because basically the quality of your sleep then also determines your sensitivity to pain the next day to a large degree. And yeah, that's the short version, not very short.
That's absolutely phenomenal. I had picked up on your use of the pain that I had. And I'm like, oh, so this isn't just the idea of treating pain. It can actually cure pain.
Yes. So in my particular case, spinal cord injury and TBI, traumatic brain injury related pain, all of my pain was how the brain was processing a signal that wasn't actually a pain signal. And so something like fibromyalgia is an example that is in between those 2 extremes, where it's a condition where your brain is amplifying a real pain signal. So in that kind of example, we're cutting pain sometimes in half, but improving quality of life by about 45% is the average of our pilot study. So hopefully we will find other groups like SCI pain and possibly phantom limb. Hopefully we'll find subgroups where, like me, it can be a total fix. And then in everything else, we're a tool and toolkit to help people manage it with everything else they're doing. So we're not trying to replace anything. We're trying to be an extra tool to help people in any different way. I would like to replace Ambien, but that's another whole other story.
Nice.
But mostly, opioids have their place. but if you take less opioids, they're safer. So we really very much see ourselves as a tool and toolkit. And a large part of it is giving people agency, giving people some more control over their life. Because if you have pain or depression or anxiety, and your only option is to pop a pill, it doesn't make people feel like they're in control of their lives, especially because the opportunity cost of popping a pill is always side effects. Unless you're taking a vitamin or melatonin, there's not a lot you can take pill-wise that doesn't have a side effect that you're going to pay for it. Whereas with a device, the opportunity cost is the time that it takes to use it, because we haven't had a negative side effect on, I think it's like 1,500 people now total. So 0 side effects. It's the question is the time that you spend using the device worth it for you? And if you're using it to get to sleep faster, especially when you're in pain, we're saving people time on getting to sleep. So essentially, there's 0 opportunity cost if that's the case. So we really think, the worse the problem someone has, the greater benefit they can have by trying and using a device.
Richard, we have a few questions from the audience, but I think Carlos had a couple before we do that.
Yeah, if Kim gives me permission, may I?
Just mirror. Go ahead, Carlos.
I'm just kidding. So listen, Richard, I got a question. That I remember it many years ago, I think in the early 90s, I came across a very rudimentary type of similar technology that I can remember. I mean, I see similarities in things that I saw back in the 90s. And back then I was very interested in these types of, I don't know, there's a word for that. It's like sort of like psycho-navigation or something along those lines with devices. And back then, like I said, it was very rudimentary. So it was really about the physical aspect of it. They called it induced meditation or something, fancy terms that were in vogue back then. But now, with so many advancements in technology, and especially on the software side, on the data side, and what I'm curious is, and this is like an honest question from someone who is not an expert in technology like me, what do you envision as the possibilities to obtain actionable data that can, from that device and from the experience itself, that can be converted into some kind of retro feedback or even some data analysis that can be made maybe to predict patterns of some sort? I don't know. Going beyond the experience of using the device, do you envision any possibilities in using data or technology or software or apps to any extent to make it richer?
Yeah, certainly. So in the original version, which was desktops, boxes, and an EEG machine, I was creating a feedback loop for each person. So I was reading their data on an EEG, and then I was changing the stimulus that they were receiving. You can't do that to put someone to sleep every night or to help people with pain, which is why there's a big gap in the company story from the 6 years of early work I did to when wearable tech finally caught up with what I wanted to build. And so now in the current device, I don't know if you can see that there, we have a heart rate variability sensor that sits in the middle of the forehead. And heart rate variability looks at the exact difference between every single heartbeat. And the more variability there is between each heartbeat, basically the greater the systemic relaxation that someone has. So heart rate variability is a really good way of measuring mental health and relaxation. And in the next version of the device, which will be coming out middle of next year, we will switch from just measuring that data and relaying it to people to being able to do a closed loop feedback system. So that in real time, the device will be asking the question, are you more or less relaxed than you were on the previous set of algorithms? That will allow us in real time to know what algorithms specifically are actually helping you get more relaxed during that session. In addition to that, obviously, there'll be big data stuff where we're collecting all that data. It's going into the cloud and looking at large numbers of people and over time improving all of the algorithms. But the first most personal aspect of it is the next version of the device will be acting for you in real time.
Excellent. So we have a question from the audience, if you don't mind. Yonder asks, how many people have tried this device? I think you said 1,500 people, correct?
Yeah, so over many different versions.
Okay.
The current version, we've sold 150 as a wellness device. They're available to anybody to buy currently on our website at sana.io/buy sana. We've got 120 that are being used in a clinical trial for fibromyalgia at Duke University. And another 120 that are being used at Mount Sinai in that trial. We also have quite a few devices out in the field currently being tested in various countries, various NATO countries, Canada, Hungary, UK, and some military use here. And the military use is all about fatigue mitigation. How do you recover really quickly when you've got a rapid turnaround? We've also got people using in mini studies in different places. Just over a few days ago, we have one of my new favorite people trying our device, who's a Canadian policeman who is being very public about how he's battling his own PTSD and spreading the word about how first responders struggle, and hopefully we'll be able to help him to the extent that he can help us help others. So yeah, there are lots of different uses. And again, just to reiterate the FDA part, we have a 513G approval as a wellness device, and all the other indications we will be going through clinical trials to prove out and get FDA approval for.
Excellent. We have a few more questions from the audience. One is, have you thought about, can this be used to treat any kind of mental illness like depression, anxiety, any use cases for that?
Yeah, so in all the clinical trials we've done so far, because we've completed 3, anxiety reduction ends up being the largest overall drop. Depression, the second largest drop. The anxiety reduction is probably driving the improvements in sleep and in depression. But anything where stress exacerbates a problem, we should be able to improve it. But anxiety and depression will be subjects of their own studies in future. But yes, it's a very, very important area.
And then finally, the other question was, have you ever thought about using other kinds of wearables like a watch that can measure sleep quality, for example? And I guess the question is, are there plans to introduce additional devices beyond the mask?
So currently we're using things like the Philips Actor Watch in clinical trials because they're clinically validated by the FDA. The aim on additional wearables is integration with wearables that already exist. We don't want to be competing, for example, on the wrist we don't want to be competing for real estate with Apple Watches, for example. We want to be integrating with that data, because what we will have on the next version of the device is the very best quality wearable sensors that are available. The limitation being we will only be able to measure while someone's using a device. So being able to integrate that with lower quality data that is someone is collecting 24/7 in something like an Apple Watch would be great and would improve the overall continuum of care.
Amazing.
Richard, we're approaching the final segment, the final minutes of today's conversation, and one of the things that I like to zero in right now, it's actually something that I'm reading on the information that you kindly shared with us to publish on our website, and this is about, well, you created technology that is doing a lot of good to a lot of people for a number of reasons. But going beyond that, and this would be like an open-ended question. Going beyond that, well, you're telling us right there that you came up with this after going through a very traumatic event, and you mentioned a jeep crash near in Yemen, that particular one. So my final question to you, just based out of that experience alone, and for those who are watching, beyond the tech aspect of your conversation, what would you like to leave our audience with in terms of, I don't know, what final words of wisdom, or how maybe it helped you reassess your life, anything that falls into the realm of personal growth, if you will, beyond the tech side? What would you like to leave our audience with?
Oh, that's a really good question. I guess the most important thing that I learned so much. I could write whole books on what I learned. The first thing I learned from my accident was actually that people were a lot nicer in general than I thought they were. When I came out of a coma and found hundreds of cards around my bed, it was the first time that I actually thought that human beings were really worth spending time with. And then the next thing I learned was, there are always people who've got worse problems than you. I was in a hospital with people with neck injuries, and I still can't wrap my head around how people survive those. And in the mental health realm, that's always true. You literally don't know with anybody you're talking to how much they're struggling. Everyone has something going on that they're struggling with. So that whole idea of, be kind because you don't know what journey someone else is on, that's always true. And I think the third really big thing I've learned is that however much you're struggling, or however bad a day you're having, the effort of trying to help someone else for anything is always worth doing, even just for improving your own mood. Because as soon as you're able to help anybody, it doesn't matter how bad your life is, the moment you manage to help someone else, you automatically feel a little bit better. So yeah, I have, it's a great privilege where I am now, to have got to the stage where we are beginning to help a large number of people. And yeah, anytime any of us have the ability to help anybody else, it pays back. You get improvements in mood and well-being beyond what you can imagine. I mean, this is why people go volunteer. This is why people spend time with family and friends. That reaching out and helping others is what makes life worth living, regardless of what state you're in when you start.
Good. Tulio, I think that what Richard just mentioned falls right. It's right up your alley, because as a life coach, right? It's very aligned to
I mean,
some of the things that I've heard from you.
It's very interesting. It's about Richard, but it's very interesting because when you have a life-altering moment like that, it really shakes you, and it triggers all kinds of things that you face. In my case, it triggered all kinds of things that were buried deep from childhood. I had to face a lot of things and invest in a lot of self-awareness to be able to make sense of what I was experiencing, what I was feeling, even some post-traumatic from the accident. And that awoken this desire to share with others of raised self-awareness, the importance of understanding yourself, right? So if you're next to someone who's a little snippy and a little impatient, chances are that person's in pain, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain. They're dealing with it that you can't see, which is how they sometimes are very short with their words, because if you're living in pain, you're just not 100%. So raising awareness that, we don't know what's going on in someone's head. You would look at it, we meet someone for 5-10 minutes and make an assumption about who they are, but we really don't know who they are. Even if we've known people for several years, unless we really live with them, we really don't know what's going on in their lives. So I admire that you've taken this tragedy and created a solution that can solve problems for millions of people. Very grateful that you've been in our show. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I very much appreciate it too. I appreciate the ability to spread the help in spreading the word.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stay as we wrap up. Carlos, up. We have 3 more shows this week.
3 more shows, Tulio. That is correct. So tomorrow we have a double whammy, 1 at 10 and 1:10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Pacific. The first one is with Mark Grob, the head of Immersive Tech Center for UPS, about XR and enterprise through the years. Then the second one at 1 p.m. Pacific is going to be with Greg Dickinson and Doug Udoff, the CEO and COO, respectively, of Omedim. And this is going to be about the building trust digitally throughout the customer journey. And finally, on Thursday, we're going to be speaking with Milana Valmont and, Mateusz Griszelak. I don't know how to pronounce it, folks, to be honest, because it's foreign name for me. But it's they're the CEO and the CTO of PiraCore, respectively. I don't have the topic for them yet, but it's going to be right there on the Dojo Live website on our calendar, folks. So that's going to be on Thursday, 1 p.m. Pacific. Join us on either of the 3 remaining shows of the week. They're going to be great. Thank you.
Just a quick, we have ad count option.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So
Did we lose Tulio, or is it just me?
He's
me.
I think it's
so,
probably Tulio. Tulio, we're losing you.
Oh, so sorry.
For the first time, it's not me.
Yeah. It's not your steam power internet. Okay. So, well, we're about, that was it. So thanks to our guest. And thank you to my team.